Welcome into the Slump Monkeys Concrete Podcast, soon to be the world's #1 concrete podcast. And this episode is brought to you by Command Alkon. Celebrating 50 years of innovation in the concrete industry, they're always doing what's best to look out for the heavy building industry. If you would like to learn more, please visit them at commandalkon.com. 50 years is incredible. Look, I celebrate any company that's got 50 years in any business because that means you survived at least 3 generations going down and the company's still going strong. But what I found most interesting about Command Alkon when I was talking to their VP, Trevor Panis, was he reminded me that it's not just 50 years as a business, it's 50 years as a software company. Software. Think about software in 1976. What did that look like? Putting punch cards in a mainframe? What are we doing here? So to be around that long as a software company and still be doing what they're doing, it is the most rarefied air of all rarefied air. So congratulations, Command Alkon, for being such an amazing company and making it this far. Thank you for supporting this episode of the Slump Monkeys Concrete Podcast. With that, we'll move in to the first order of business, guys. I love doing this first segment of the show, right? So for those of you that are new listeners and you're just coming in and maybe you didn't listen to the old podcast that we had and you're just tuning in for the first time here, just the way we like to organize it is to have a front section with me, sometimes another person, and we'll go through some of the current events or hot topics and thoughts of the day and expound on some of those things and what we're seeing in the business. And then after that, we get into our interview, which is the main guest, and they come in with a point of view of the industry from whatever company they're at, and what they're seeing, and what they think is interesting, and we just have a chat. For today, our guest is actually from the title sponsor, Command Alkon. Ron Carlson comes in. He's freaking awesome. His experience is incredible. Not a whole lot of guys running out there. They got 10 years as like truck driver level stuff, 10 years as a QC guy, 10 years in sales, 10 years in operations and batching, and he puts it all together and has a really nice view of the industry. And then to take that view of the industry and then work for a company like Command Alkon and be customer first is super interesting. And how he even got introduced to Command Alkon and got his role is just a fascinating story. So, everybody will have to forgive him for being a Chicago Bears fan. Look, I can't help that. That's just who he is. But how he got to Command and what he's leading over there is really fascinating. So I look forward to you guys hearing that conversation with Ron Carlson. And before we get to that, we're going to have a chat about stuff that's in the news. When you start looking at sites like Construction Dive and Concrete Products, and you sort of see what's out there, what's being advertised and what's being written about, some of it's interesting, some of it's not. I'm interested in a lot of the mergers and acquisitions that are happening right now, but I think I'm going to save that for the next episode. This episode, I've got to go back again, and we have to touch on something about the data centers. We've mentioned it, a little bit in the first episode, a tiny bit in the second episode, but I've got a little bit more up close and personal with these things. And I just kept thinking and thinking. I just couldn't get it out of my head about these data centers. And the question that I keep coming back to is, are people behaving rationally about data center construction? Are people behaving rationally about data center construction? And the answer is, I don't know if they are. And that goes for both the positive and the negative. But we have to live in rational space. Folks listen to this are primarily in the concrete business. Can't live in fantasy land in the concrete business. We're pouring mud. It's hard work. Things got to go right. That's concrete. And what kind of tipped me off about things not being rational is I have personal experience in my personal life of dealing with folks who had severe mental illness. And I saw a therapist one time. I literally had one visit with the guy. He changed my whole perspective on life. Didn't even have to go back. Oh, that's it. I'm fixed. Thank you. And when I was questioning reality, was like, why would someone behave in a way that is completely opposite of how they used to behave and how they proclaim they want to behave and have responsibilities in life that you think would preclude you from behaving the way they're behaving? He said something phenomenal. He said, "You can't rationalize an irrational mind." That was the most profound thing. It has guided me so many times in my life when I'm sitting here thinking, What is going on?" And oh, yeah, that's right. You can't rationalize an irrational mind. So as I see people who are so totally for AI and so totally against AI, and then it sort of comes into our world, the construction side, and I just have to ask myself, are these people behaving rationally? Do I have to try to rationalize an irrational mind? And it came to a head. All this thinking came to a head last week when I was traveling. I was on a data center site, and due to NDAs, you can't go out and say where you were and who you were with and what you were doing. But I can tell you that I saw an operating data center, and it was so clean and so quiet. I didn't even think it was turned on. And all the people that I've talked to around the country that had all these things to say about data centers, it was always negative. Nobody had a positive thing to say. Now, I listen and read the positive things about AI and data centers, but no like real person that I've met in the flesh has ever said anything nice. I got uh we're going to go through this in a minute on some of the arguments around these data centers and what may be rational, what maybe not. And the first, when I thought about are they being rational, I kind of bucketed the argument into four pillars. And the first pillar was the argument against physical construction. So these are the people that are not in my backyard. They don't want this data center anywhere near them. And I think this is the most visceral of all the pillars of the argument. Here in my local town, we have an old steel facility. Cliffs owns the property. The building is not being used for really anything. It's just a storage site. Think about converting it into a data center site. It's sitting right by the river, so there's water. You're thinking, oh, great, easy access to water. We got lots of power here. You could build a small data center. It'd be a small one too. It's not even a big one. Build a small one here. Be fantastic. Uh, oh my gosh, the organized opposition to this is absolutely unbelievable. And they put a flyer in my door trying to tell me it literally reads the tragic effects of data centers, the real costs to our communities, our health, and our future. And it is 60 points of why data centers are horrible and you don't want them in your community. Now, I I just could not believe that someone took the time to make this, and I don't know that it's even grounded in reality. It says uh, that there's a lot of noise, and the noise is all the time. And I talked to somebody in person one time and said, "Oh, you can hear it from 3 miles away." Well, I'm here to tell you that's not true. When I was on a site, there's zero noise. I didn't even know if the thing was turned on. Zero noise. Oh, it's gonna destroy the groundwater. Well, I don't know if you know anything about the construction of these things, but they're using recycled water. So they're using minimal actual fresh water at all, much less than any farm or any golf course or anything else. So very, very minimal water. Immense damage to local roads. Why? Why would that happen? Why would there be immense damage to local roads? It's some really silly stuff, but they get really deep into the negatives of the construction of this data center. So they're totally against it. Totally against. Says it's going to ruin your quality of life, increase cancer, contaminate the soil, hazardous materials, destroys agriculture. I mean, guys, I don't know how much of this is true. It's certainly not true here in the town that I'm in, and it wasn't true on the site that I visited. So they're arguing against it, and for me, my bias is toward the construction of these centers, not just because of the SCM that we're manufacturing that's going to lower the embodied carbon of the concrete dramatically, um, and at scale, but it's also because I like seeing construction jobs going on. I like seeing things get built up, and I like using artificial intelligence to make me better at what I do. So it's a net positive, and it's really not even close to me. To me, it's not even close. In fact, I saw an article written by the co-founder of DeepMind, Google's DeepMind. This guy was basically started the whole like quest to try to get to artificial general intelligence, and I think he summed it up really nicely, and I'm going to read what Demi had to say here. If deployed responsibly, AI would prove to be one of the most beneficial and transformative technologies ever invented. Artificial general intelligence cannot be compared to standard technological breakthroughs, not even ones as consequential as the internet or mobile technology. It is much more akin to the discovery of electricity or fire. If you stop to think about it, we've essentially found a way to make sand think, and it's miraculous. And I agree with that. I agree 100% with that. Is there always going to be some type of downsides to a new technology? Maybe when the cars were invented, suddenly, you know, horse-drawn carriages went out, and guys who were farriers to horses struggled. But I don't think like on the whole anybody would ever say, "Well, I wish we'd never invented a car to mess up the horse farrier." I also think with artificial general intelligence, you're not looking at the replacement of all human work. You're democratizing knowledge. And in order to democratize knowledge, which means we would make it available to everyone, regardless of your education level, regardless of your background, of any social class, you would have access to an elite knowledge worker. And anytime you can do that, now you've got people who have different perspectives and different ideas and different ways of working that can then use knowledge to either create their idea, spur them on to the next step, and help them. When I went back to school and got my MBA from Villanova, one of the reasons I was so drawn to get that, for those that don't know, I'll tell it quickly. I had been promoted to a new role, a bit higher role, and was managing some stuff. And the new CEO came in and he was asking all these questions, asked me to give a report on state of the division. And I did that state of the division. And he looked at me like I had three eyes. And he said, "What the heck is this?" I was like, "Oh, it's what you asked for, state of the division." And he was like, "No, no, no, no. This is not at all what I wanted." And he said, "Here's what I need. I need listed out like these 21 things." I was like, "Oh, great." So I went, I was like, I can compile that report. I get all that together for you. Boom, 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 put it all together, showed it to him, looked at me again like I was insane. And I was like, "This is what you asked for." He's like, "No, this is not at all what I wanted." He started asking me all these questions. And I thought I was answering him, but it was like he was speaking Chinese and I was speaking English, and we just were getting nowhere. And I felt so, like, so inadequate. I mean, dumb is like the right word, but it was just, I wasn't equipped with the right language, the right knowledge, the right tools. I was like, "I don't ever want to feel like that again." So I went and got an MBA, and part of it was learning how to talk, but then the second part of it was about learning to ask the right questions. I would sit with, we had a guy in our company, David Copley, and he works for the government now. I think he's in Secretary Burgum's like right hand man or something. He's that type of guy, smartest guy I've ever met in my life, like brilliant beyond brilliant. And I noticed he was asking like certain questions, and then when I'd see him again, 3 months later, and have something else, he'd have like another set of questions, and sometimes he'd repeat some of those questions. And I realized like I didn't even know to ask the questions he was asking. And so to go to business school also helped me learn what questions to ask so that I could solve the challenges and problems that were in front of me. And I say all that because that was pre AI. Now with some of these AI models, when I encounter a problem and I go to it, I don't try to get it to solve my problem for me. I go to it and I tell it, what questions do I need to be asking so that I can properly solve this problem? What questions do I need to be asking so I can evaluate this opportunity? What questions do I need to be asking so that when the engineer of record comes to me and says, your product, I need to evaluate it for use in this job, am I going to put my stamp on it? Well, what questions does he going to be asking me? And I can prepare myself so that I can have the answer so I can go in the right direction at least. And the ability to know what to even ask is such a huge leg up. And then to draft things for you and help you. It is such, if you're a person of high agency, you should be absolutely crushing in the world of agentic AI. And so, beyond the arguments for or against physical construction, there's an argument right now about who's benefiting from the AI. That would be the second pillar of this discussion, this argument about the data centers is who's benefiting from AI? Is it the trillionaire on paper, the head of SpaceX, or is it guys that are and gals that are leading small businesses that are the backbone of this country? Because if you're a small business owner, there is never enough time in the day. You are the marketing department, you are the sales department, you are the operations department. You're having to manage people and crises. There is never enough time in the day. If at any moment you can go into AI and start telling it, have a relationship with an agentic agent. I don't mean the free version of ChatGPT. I mean the paid versions, get an agentic system, find a harness you like. Yeah, it takes a little effort to figure out what all those weird words mean. But once you get it figured out, you essentially lay out the function of the business. Here's what I do. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here are the steps that I take to get there. What am I doing? What could I be doing better? What am I doing wrong? What are the things I'm missing that I didn't even know I should have? But it's just, it will walk you through it. And if you're a high agency person that says, well, I wanted a CRM, but Salesforce is going to charge me $1,000 a month for all the bells and whistles that I need to make this work and function. But I'm a small business. I can't pay you $1,000 a month. That'd be the most expensive thing. Most expensive recurring bill that's not, part of the plan. And I just can't do that. Well, now you can just do it yourself. You can build a CRM with all the bells and whistles, piece by piece. Do it all at once, do it piece by piece, however you want to do. And there's no ongoing maintenance fee. There's no ongoing subscription. Many people as you want can log into this thing totally secure, as secure as you want to make it, actually, with tiered access. And all your stuff is where you need it to be. Cost you $20, maybe 30. By the time you put all the bells and whistles on it, maybe you spent $200 and never an ongoing fee. I mean, it takes like an afternoon to get it done because what you're trying to do is describe what you need. And if you know what you need, it helps. And if you don't know what you need, you ask the questions. What do I need? And it walks you through. It's the most incredible thing. So to unlock knowledge for folks of all class backgrounds, democratize that knowledge, you get it in the hands of small businesses. High agency people are going to win because it used to be a huge gate to even know what question to ask, and then another gate to be able to execute and answer those questions. So we're in an age of knowledge abundance for folks that are willing to seek it. And in order to keep that going, we're going to need data center construction. The third pillar of the argument where I'm wondering if people are being rational or irrational about data center construction, it is the argument against digital surveillance. This is one where I think I got to give it to the other team. This is one where I'm not sure I'm in the right. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. If you are following any news stories on this type of topic, there's a company called Flock that makes digital cameras that are connected to AI learning algorithms. And if there's a Flock camera in your, or it wouldn't just be one, there would be a host of Flock cameras in your city, They can tag vehicle license plates, run them back against the DMV. They can scan facial recognition. They can see people and they recognize who's committing crimes. They give that to the cops. Cops go out and start their investigation. So, on the negative perception of that, it sounds like some awful Skynet type of thing. On the positive side of that, my car got hit in a parking lot a month ago. And when I came out and there was nobody there, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like somebody hit me." I was in there for an hour. I came out, there's my whole driver's side doors jacked up. Call the police. Police come out and they're like, "See who did it?" It's like, "No, I was shopping." And come out and now my car's jacked up. And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, good news is we got cameras around this town. So we might find out who did it." Because we knew exactly it was within like a 1 hour time frame. And sure enough, cameras that were monitoring that parking lot, plus cameras that were monitoring uh, around the city, caught the exact car that did the damage. Turned out they hit my truck. Sorry, hit my car, and then we're like, "Whoops!" And then went and reparked somewhere else after hitting me while pulling in. We're like, "Whoops! Didn't mean to do that." Went and just chose another parking spot. So is that behavior a little bit psychotic? Yes. Uh, would I've ever found that person without these flock type cameras? No, we wouldn't have. But they were able to track them down, got their insurance, cars getting repaired next week. So that would be like the positive side of it. And you would, I'm benefiting from that type of technology again. So it puts me on the bias side, but let's take it out of the local communities and giving the police force a hand up on investigating crimes. Then you get to companies like Palantir, giant, huge, scary word to especially to friends like mine, and really it probably would have been for me too normally. And this is where I kind of give them maybe I have to really concede the argument on this. The Palantir is a company that built digital services for the military and the United States government. And when AI really, these LLMs really became advanced and AI technologies started growing, one of the things they did was they were able to map all the government systems one to the other. And so when Doge came in, they tried to do the same thing, and they realized that like Social Security was a giant vector for everything, and everything just calls back to Social Security. But if you're in the AI world, they have a phrase: garbage in, garbage out. So if the data that you're putting into the model is trash, the output's always going to be trash. And so they realized that if the Social Security numbers couldn't be verified, but there was a Social Security number registered, but they couldn't verify that it was an actual person or it wasn't a duplicate or that it should even be there, then you couldn't detect that, like, hey, the Medicaid payment that's going out to that particular Social Security number is a good payment or a fraud payment. You just couldn't tell because you couldn't see that that Social Security number was good or bad. So they were trying to go in and say, all right, let's try and verify that. Well, Palantir's doing that, but like on the military side, where it's like, okay, DHS, law enforcement, all their law enforcement operations could connect their technologies to all the civilian databases that are out there and cross reference you with some profile that they've gathered. If you've used AI, you know it's not always right. So, do you want the government being able to dig into all of your digital identifiable personal information? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I do. I really don't think I want that. We're going to be able to stop that. Well, if you stop data center construction, yeah, yeah, there's a chance. There's a chance that you stop those systems from being as powerful as they otherwise could be, or you make someone have to make a decision, a trade off. Are we going to use the capacity that we do have to accelerate business and technology, or are we going to use this to spy on our civilian population? So I think there's a really good argument there from what I would call the other side of maybe anti data center side, because I'm on the pro data center side. And I have to say that the argument against digital surveillance is pretty strong. The fourth pillar of this argument can really have some scope creep. So I'm going to try and do my very best to stick to our rule. If you're new to this podcast, we have two rules: you don't curse, and you don't talk politics. This is not a place to talk politics. We do sometimes talk policies, and frameworks, because sometimes that impacts us as an industry, but we do not care who you voted for. Um, there is an argument by some on the data center construction. Try to they try to bring it in to say that it's an argument against a capitalist society's adoption of AI. A capitalist society's adoption of AI. So what would that look like? In order to steelman their argument, I try to I try to like throw it in reverse, right? So if you're a fan of, if you're listening to this and you're in construction, you most likely are. You're a business owner. If you're listening to this, you're probably a business owner, or you would like to be, or you're a high agency person running a QC department. You know, nobody's looking over your shoulder. You're out there doing your job on a job site at 4 o'clock in the morning because you're supposed to do that because what you said you would do. You're that type of person. So capitalism likely appeals to you more than some other economic or socioeconomic system. But let's say, for the sake of this argument, we're going to flip it around, and we are all fans of capitalism. But let's flip it around and say it's a communist society's adoption of AI. So if you were in a communist society and they suddenly were supercharged and superpowered to know exactly what you have, what you own, and what they want to confiscate, they want to seize the means of production, but now they know exactly what to do, where to go, how to do it. Well, I wouldn't be a fan of that. So let's say you're not anti-capitalism, but you're worried that unchecked or supercharged capitalism might pose a threat to the country. And I I don't necessarily fall in that camp, but I'm trying to steelman their argument, right? So a capitalist society's adoption of AI, one of the things that people will point immediately to are these massive IPOs. So SpaceX just had one. There's probably going to be one for OpenAI, which is a weird situation because it was supposed to be a nonprofit. And then Anthropic, people who make Claude, um, they're also looking at having an IPO, maybe even by the end of this year. All three of those companies could be $1 trillion IPOs. We've never had that. Now, the value of money is a little bit less. So, what's $1 trillion today wasn't $1 trillion before, but $1 trillion is insane. And we're about to have three of them in a 12-month span. Um, that's that's crazy. That's a lot of money. Where's this capital coming from? Where's the capital that's funding the listing of these companies onto the stock market? $1 trillion? That's a lot of money. And the government hadn't been printing new bills lately. They did 5 years ago. They ain't printed a bunch lately. But why, why would a company even want to go public? If you're familiar with the difference between accounting on a private company and a public company, they're not even close. When you're a private company, you can plan for the future. You can invest and do things that are going to benefit the company 5 years, 10 years down the road. When you're a public company, you file quarterly earnings, and you better be doing what's good for the stakeholders and the shareholders in the immediate future. If you want to do stuff long term, you have to sort of combine it. You have to say, all right, here's what we're doing today that's very valuable for you, Mr. Shareholder, and here's what we're doing in the future. You really got to justify all that spending. When it's private, you just justify it to the board. And not that that's always easy, but a board of 10 people is going to be way easier than the collective shareholders. Like, say you had 20 million shareholders. So why would anybody go through and change the philosophy of how they're going to manage the accounting of their company, the reporting of their company? Funding. You need funding. And the private markets are the amount of money available in the private market is a fraction of what's available in the public markets. And in order to tap into the public markets, you launch your stock on one of the stock exchanges. That initial public offering allows you to be funded. Now, every share that's sold after that, after the initial tranche goes out, those can be sold and resold on the market. The company who listed does not get any benefit of the shares that are sold in the secondary market. But they do get funding from the public for that initial tranche. They can later release more shares if they want and get more funding. But in this case, we're just talking. Let's just pretend there's just a single day that the shares get put out there, and now these AI companies are using other people's money to go out and fund the construction of these data centers. But in that type of society, in a capitalist society, you would hope that these companies are acting rationally, they're doing the right thing going forward, and then now we all get to participate. So for me, this is an even bigger win. I want to participate. I think this is going to be great for humanity. And there's a company called Thinking Machines, and Miss Murati wrote a great essay, and I'd like to read what she says about it because I think she sums it up pretty good. This section of the essay is titled "The Future Worth Building." The technology industry has made incredible progress in teaching machines to think. What they should think about must remain with us humans. What is worth wanting? What is worth making? What's the right use of the time that we have? We're not looking to hand down a single answer to the AI, but to give every person the ability to make their own answer. The current path of AI development, pushing towards centralization and autonomy, frames human involvement as a trade off: participation versus capability, ownership versus safe alignment. These are mere technical challenges to solve. AI that is more capable because it encourages human participation, organizations that benefit in the long run from tailoring AI to their advantages, alignment that arises from diverse AI shaped by people who own them. Future is not a choice between human dominance and rapid obsolescence in the face of AI. Different roads lead to many different futures, and we get to choose which one we take. We are building technology that lets the born and the made walk the road together. This world that we're entering into with the AI data center construction, it's the backbone. It's what's unlocking these things, these tools that enable high agency folks to go out and achieve. And the people that are afraid that the capitalist society's adoption of AI is going to lead to a massive bubble that's going to ruin everybody's lives, like the .com crash. Well, there's a massive difference because that really wasn't a .com crash. That was a telecom crash. It needs to be super important. I want to make sure this is really, really clear. If you want to hear the greatest orator about this, a guy named Gavin Baker is a big investor guy, and he sums it up perfectly. And he says he was heavily invested in the .com era and lost a lot, so he dug in deep on what was the real problem. And the real problem back then was something called dark fiber. So during the .com bubble, what led to that was they said, oh, everybody's getting on the internet. We've got all these e-commerce sites. The internet's going to be the biggest thing in the world. In order to access the internet, everybody needs fiber optics so they can connect to high-speed internet. That was the belief. So it was funded. I don't remember if it was funded by the government or if all private. It's probably both. And they laid a ton of this fiber optic cable. At the time of the crash, 97% of the fiber that was laid was called dark fiber, meaning it was not connected to the internet. There was no traffic on this fiber. It was if you build it, they will come. And they laid it all thinking they needed it. But they didn't. They overbuilt. So here we are with data center construction, and people are thinking, oh my gosh, one company is trying to spend $100 billion this year to build AI data centers. Another company just entered in a contract for $80 billion worth of AI data centers. They're trying to build hundreds of these in every state. Well, this is the next dark fiber. And the difference, why dark fiber was a bubble and this may not be, is there is not a single dark GPU or CPU. The little backbone processors inside the data centers that are actually doing the calculations for AI. There is not a single unused GPU or CPU out there. We are so backlogged on those. The demand is so high on these tools that you have absolutely got the inverse of what led to the telecom bubble bursting with the dark fiber situation. So I want to see. I'll wrap up this by saying, although I respect all the viewpoints on the data center construction, I think the anti data center people are wrong. I think we need to be building as many of these as possible. I think we need as much knowledge generation as possible. I want to see people from all walks of life have access to this knowledge to be able to be creative, to be the best versions of themselves, whether that's learning through an AI program, whether it's building and creating through an AI program, whether it's managing yourself through an AI program, which one of the things I have to do. I have so many undone tasks, and I'll have like a task, like 60 tasks that I need to get done, and I'm real guilty of wanting to do the thing that should probably be 12th on the list, but that one looks like fun, so I do that one. So the AI tells me every morning, like, "Hey, here, scan your emails, scan your task list. These are the three most important things. If you could get three things done today, these are the three things you have to get done." So you deal with all the things that come in through the day, and like, oh yeah, here's the three things you absolutely must get done today. And so I want everyone to have that level of organization and put safeguards on themselves and make themselves be the most productive, the best versions of themselves, add value to our communities, the companies you work for. I just think it's an absolutely massive win. I think it's a massive win. And I think the people that are against that, I think they're wrong. And with that said, I must alert you to one of our sponsors of the show, Rocket Start. Rocket Start is something that nobody can claim needs to be stopped. Our boy, Manny, he's the man. And he started Rocket Start with the idea that the specifically the drivers in a ready mix company, it could be a driver for any company, but he started in ready mix. And those folks were working hard and should be celebrated. I wrote a big blog post last week on the Slump Monkeys website. You can go to slumpmonkeys.com, Monkeys, slumpmonkeys.com. You can see the blog. It's titled The Mill Report. It's the name of the blog. And I wrote one about his company. It was not an ad. He did not pay me, did not ask me to do that. I love his company so much. I think it was worth diving in deep about why it will significantly change the culture of any company that's got drivers that they depend on, drivers that they know are going above and beyond, and we can publicly and privately celebrate them through Manny's platform. It is the absolute best. If you would like to learn more, please go to gorocketstart.com. Ask for Manny, gorocketstart.com today. All right, let's get ready. We have the interview portion of our show. Ron Carlson is on deck. He's going to come in. We're not going to talk about data centers. I think we got that off our chest here. I appreciate it. What's the old meme that men won't go to therapy, they just start podcasts. So I appreciate you guys listening to me go through that. I hope we all learned something together. Our goal here is to be smart, original, funny, and authentic. And we certainly captured a couple of those today. Please join me in welcoming Ron Carlson, Command Alkon. And welcome into the interview portion of the Slump Monkeys Concrete Podcast. I am joined by the great and powerful Ron Carlson of Command Alkon. Ron, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul. It's going to be fun.
No, it's going to be great. And it's cool that, Command Alkon is the title sponsor of the inaugural month of the show. And then they were, kind enough to have you be available. It's funny, like when Carly was like, "Hey, you should talk to our VP, Ron." And I was like, "Oh, geez, I don't want a vice president. They're just going to give me a bunch of corporate slogans and platitudes and jargon." And then we had our little pre-call. And I was like, "Oh, no. Ron's legit. Ron's a legit guy, and I
Right.
think it's important for people to hear your background, where you came from, that makes you, a real person and not one of these freaking VP robots that are running
Sure.
around.
I'd be happy to share that. I'll go as far back as right out of school. I got married, had a child, and I needed a job. I needed a job quickly. So I knew somebody. I'm from Chicago, by the way, born and raised in Chicago. And as a matter of fact, a friend of my father said, "Hey, I can get you a job pretty quick, and just fill out this big long application, and I'll get you in." And I said, "Well, where's that at?" And they said, "How would you like to work in the Cook County Jail in Chicago?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a job. I'm 21 years old. I know nothing. I know better of nothing. So sure, let's do it. Where do I sign?" Right. So
So crazy.
I went ahead as not knowing any better, and I said, "Hey, look, it's with the sheriff's department. It's got benefits. It's got everything you need. It's a pretty prestigious job for the most part." Uh, Parents were proud. Friends were proud. Hey, he's a deputy sheriff, and he's doing great things with his life. Right. So if you know anything about politics in Chicago, I don't want to bring up politics, but it leans, if you don't have a certain person backing you up, I should so to speak, and to move your career along, you pretty much don't move along, right? So you get stuck in one spot, you're there for the rest of your life.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I spent the first, I'm going to say 4.5, almost 5 years working in the Cook County Jail. And like I told you before, Paul, the last year of my tenure, I always say I didn't serve my country in the military, but I think I served my country well in the Cook County Jail. So I served society as a whole. So the last year or so, I found myself going. I felt like I was going to jail every day when I went to work. So the walls started kind of closing in on me, and I was still too young for all of this. And I said, it's time for a change. And um, I just drove to work one day and got out of my car in my uniform and walked to work like I normally would in the doors. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I made a beeline to this office, and I said, "Here's my badge, here's my credentials. This is my last day." And I walked out the door and never looked back. And I was never happier for it. So here I am, a young guy with a child, and I believe I might have even had one on the way.
Oh
I
my
did I
gosh.
didn't tell my wife I was leaving the sheriff's
Oh
department. I
my
didn't tell
god.
anybody. I made that decision on the way to work. So I said, "What am I going to do now?" Okay, so it's too late now. I can't back out. I got in my car, very happy, by the way, nervous but happy. Got back in my car and I started driving home. And I said, "How am I going to tell my wife? What am I going to tell her?" I'm driving along, and I get to a stop site, a stoplight in the city, and I looked to my left out of my car window, and I saw, Zynga mixer, mixer right next to me, loaded with concrete on it. And I said, "Oh," I looked over and said, "I could do that. That's what I'll do. I'll drive a cement truck, a concrete truck."
Yes,
And
sir.
at the time, I probably said cement truck, right? I said, I'm gonna,
As we all did. Hey, we
yes,
love
we
to
all
judge
done.
people
Yes,
about that. We all made that mistake, but
absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely.
That's great. You just quit on the spot, and
That's
on the
right.
way home, you're like, "My god, what am I gonna do?"
That's what am I gonna do? Right.
And
So
you heard
yeah,
the crackling
I
of
heard it.
a
I heard
concrete.
it right next to me.
That is awesome,
As a
man.
matter of fact, I could remember it so clearly, and this was 35 years ago. It had to be like a 2-inch slump there, probably pouring curb. It was really loud, right? You could hear it. I could still remember it. And the reason I said I could do that is in the summer, a couple summers prior, I had an internship. I was working a summer job at a steel factory, and the foreman at the steel factory said, "Hey, kid, you want to learn how to drive a truck and deliver some steel to the job sites?" And I said, "Heck, anything to get out of the warehouse." Right, middle of summer, I was welding. I was grinding down welds, just silly work, right? So I said, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll learn." So I went and got my CDL, and I had it in my pocket. Never thought I'd ever use it again. Never, but I had it.
Sure.
It's on my license, right? So I never thought I'd use it. But here we are. I got it. So I made a beeline straight to Ozinga, and I went to, I believe it was their Mokina operation, because it was a Mokina operation. I went there, got an application. I didn't hear anything back for a couple of weeks. I didn't hear anything. I've heard anything, actually. So then I went to Prairie Materials, and Prairie said, yeah, we got a couple openings here. They were going through a transition at the time. They bought a company, and there's kind of a lot of stuff going on. And they said, we'll give you a shot. And I ended up working in Chicago for the next 4 seasons driving a mixer. So
That's great. And for folks, if you've been to Chicago working ready mix, you know both those company names, and
yeah,
they're both monsters. And
yeah, yeah,
if you haven't been to Prairie's Yard 32 and Yard 33, then you're missing
that's
out.
right.
Those are
That's
great
right. And
stuff.
I drove out of Yarding. I drove out of all those yards, but my home base was Des Plaines by the O'Hare Airport, which is probably the second busiest yard in the whole system. So yeah, so I did that, and some years go by, and I'm driving, and if you know anything about unions and stuff, it's all about seniority, and the more seniority you have, the longer you work throughout the season. So I was getting laid off, every day. At the time, it was Thanksgiving was religious. That day was, that Monday you were done. Everybody kind of locked down the hatches, and you were done, right? So the QC manager came up to me and said, "Hey, you seem like a pretty smart guy. Would you think you'd be interested in quality control? We're short 2 people. Would this interest you?" And I said, he asked me a couple of questions, kind of quizzed me on a few things. He said, "All right, you passed. You're good to go. If you want the job, we'll get you the job." So I
That's
said,
great.
"Yeah, let's do it." I see these guys, they all got pickup trucks. They had their little office at the plant. Everything was really peachy keen over there. Okay. I'm not bashing you QC guys, because I was one for 20 years. Okay. So I know all about it. You're waiting for a couple of loads to come out to test, and they might be 4 hours apart. Okay. So we know what you're doing in the meantime. So, so
That's great.
yeah, so I said, let's do it. And I wanted to learn something new. I thought it was great. I could learn something new. I could use my head a little bit. And if you know quality control, it's technical, and there's math, and there's all kind of things. And I was pretty good at all those things. So I spent the next 10 years doing that for Prairie. And I really loved it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I ended up taking a supervisory role with QC with Prairie, and that was a lot. That was fun. Learned a lot about managing people and schedules, and very beneficial. So my next stop was, I was on a job site with Prairie, and I had a gentleman from Ozinga come up to me, and we kind of befriended each other on a couple of job sites, and he says, "Hey, we're looking for a guy too. Would you be interested in joining our team?" And I said, "All depends on how much you want to pay me." So they wanted to pay me more than Prairie, and at that time, every dollar counted. I had another child on the way, and I made the decision to thank Prairie for everything they've done for me, and I moved on to Ozinga, and I spent the next 10 years with their team, which was fantastic. Right? Couldn't have been happier. Both of those companies are great. Ozinga was super special to me. They taught me a lot, gave me a lot of opportunities. So yeah, that was good. So I spent the next 10, and I had some supervisory roles with Ozinga as well, in their western portion of the state. So that was good too. Learned a lot. If you know anything about Ozinga, they're very technical. They're always on the forefront of everything. So I got to learn a lot,
Were,
through them. For
were,
sure.
were you in the quality department for a zinger, or were you on the operations
Quality,
side?
always quality. Yeah, always
Always
quality.
quality.
Yeah, yeah. So I worked in Chinatown. Everybody knows Chinatown, the biggest yard out there, probably one of the busiest. And so if you don't learn from that, you'll never learn, because every mix in the world comes out of that plant, from the highest strength to the lowest strength. So it was good. We learned a whole lot.
That's
I
cool,
did,
man.
especially. Yeah. So with that said, I got a call from a recruiter one day, and he says, "Hey, now remember, my first go around was in operations, technically, as a driver, and I really loved the plants and the operation portion of things. I always did that, and there was an opportunity to become the vice president, executive vice president of a company, a smaller family operation in Madison, Wisconsin, called Winger Ready Mix and Stone. Um, like I said, family owned for 100 years. And went up. I gave it a shot. It was 90 minutes from Chicago, basically, and I said, okay, um, here's an opportunity to grow, and I took the opportunity and spent almost 5 years there learning operations from as an executive. That's kind of where I got my cut my teeth there, and it was great. Awesome, another awesome family, and I couldn't thank them enough. The Shea family, they're fantastic. Same thing happened on 5 years later. Another recruiter calls, says, I have even a bigger and better opportunity, a bigger market. And I said, where's that at? And they said, Detroit, Michigan. And I said, oh, well, I really like Wisconsin. It's a nice place. Madison's a nice place to live. My family was happy. I had a house there. Everything was good. And I said, you really want me to go to Detroit, Michigan? He says,
Yeah.
no, you're taking it the wrong way. It's not really in Detroit, but you have some plants in Detroit, and your office is in Farmington Hills, Michigan. And he said it's a much bigger company, and there's much more opportunities to grow there, and it's the equivalent role, but just on a much larger scale, right? So at Winger, we had 9 ready-mix plants and 6 or 7 quarries. We were more of a stone company than we were actually a ready-mix company. I think that's where the bulk of our revenue came from. So I went out to Michigan and interviewed there, and once I got there and saw what it was really all about, that the whole Detroit picture kind of went away, and I understood more what was going on. And it was a joint venture at the time from the Levy Edward C. Levy Company and VCNA at St. Mary's, cement. So it was like I said, it was a joint venture, and it was great. Everything was great. Learned a whole lot there. Learned just, I already had 5 years under my belt, so I just kind of transitioned. So it was, same job, just more people, more plants, more problems, more headaches, right? So that's sort of in a nutshell.
That's great. But now you're with Command. So I think the most
Right.
interesting transition you made was the last one, the one that got
That's
Command.
right. That's right.
I'm
Yeah,
actually very excited for the audience to hear not just how you got here, but it actually is why you have the role you have. They basically created a position for you
yeah,
at Command so they
that's right.
never ran into this problem again, but they didn't know about the problem until you
That's right.
brought it to their attention. I think this is a fantastic story.
Yeah. So I was, as an executive at Superior Materials in Detroit, I was having more than a few issues with Command's products, and I wasn't particularly happy at the time. So I asked our salesperson to come, the Command salesperson to come on down and meet with me in the boardroom, and I kind of expressed my displeasures of the company at the customer service at the time, and things weren't going very well in my eyes. And at that time, it was very well known. It's not a secret that there was customer service issues within Command. Great people, don't get me wrong. When you got a hold of somebody, it was fantastic. The people were awesome, but it was just hard getting a hold of anybody and getting anything done. It was just hold on, wait, we'll get you somebody, that type of thing. And it was just getting to a point where it was too much. So I asked him to come down. I expressed my displeasure with what was going on, and we spent about an hour of me pretty much on my soapbox complaining and telling him why, hey, you better be careful because your competitors are coming, and they would always express to me when they came in to try to sell me their software was, hey, we won't be like Command, so don't worry, right? Well, we're gonna be there for you when you need us, okay? So this salesperson who I'm very surprised to this day actually went back after the meeting, and she had a meeting with the CEO, and he told him what I said, and which I would never think anybody would do, right? It wasn't a very good meeting. I was, you think you kind of keep that under the belt and try to, sweep that under the rug as much as possible, but no, that's not what happened. So, I don't know, sometime later, our wonderful CEO, Martin Willoughby, gave me a call and said, hey, I heard about the issues you were having. which I was shocked that the CEO would even call me back, right? That's pretty unusual. And our CEO it was right during a transition time where the leadership was changing over from the old command to the new leadership. And Martin Willoughby is just, he's a customer service guy 100%. Everything, we can't do anything until we get this right. And he was really on it 100%. We had to change that culture, change that whole thing that was going on. So Martin had made some really good hires, just some really, really good hires that really changed the whole culture in a very short period of time. So, long story short, Martin and I kept the relationship going, and I think Martin saw a vision of, I need somebody from the ready mix industry who actually lived it, worked it, knows everything about it from the ground up, to be able to give that view to our company, right? To be able to say, if we're having an issue with a company, I could go in there and say, I get it, I've lived it, I can help you, I know your pain points, and this is where it kind of calms the room down, right? When you come in there, I'm just not a tech guy selling you software. I'm a ready mix industry guy for 30 plus years, right? And I could talk the talk, and it seemed to work fantastic, right? So I built relationships with some customers and other executives from so I was sort of an executive sponsor for the liaison between myself and the executive leadership team. So anybody from any company at a high level wasn't happy what was going on, they would just call me and I would take care of it. And yeah,
Well, and the fact that this role got started because you were that executive that's complaining. So I
that's
think
right.
there's another piece of the story that I think is worth sharing for the audience, and that is that not only did Martin call you, the CEO of Command Alkon calls you and says, "Hey, my sales manager told me you just went off on them for an hour
Yeah,
in this meeting.
right.
Would you be willing to come to an all hands and chew out the whole company real quick?"
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was yeah, I don't want to call it chewy, but it was, I expressed my in a professional way. I think I expressed not only my displeasure for command. It was just, I think it was an industry sentiment. I know lots of people in the ready mix industry, and it wasn't just me. It was across the country, right? So I was just kind of there. I was everybody's mouthpiece. Everybody in the industry that I knew, I was just expressing what I know to be true, right? Which is, there's a shortcoming in the customer service part of this company, and sometimes when you get so large, you kind of forget what got you there, right? And Martin wanted to make sure we never forgot that, and that we were going to go back to that roots again, and we're going to start from the bottom, customer centric first. And he hired the right people, and and I'm not just saying this because I work here, but I don't think I've ever seen a quicker turnaround in my career. Something When you hire the right people, you get things done pretty quick. And
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and I'm not saying that anybody that knows me from life or the previous podcast that we had, we're so thankful to have sponsorships on the new one. But just because you're a sponsor doesn't mean that I'll just like give praise where it's not due. But
no, absolutely not.
I can
No,
tell you with Command, like the customer centric attitude that has popped up over the last, really like the last 5 years, kind of like in hyperdrive.
that's right.
It is so clear and obvious, and thank goodness, because there are new competitors are popping up
Hmm.
left and right, and they have very interesting software and very interesting services. And Command's already got the customer base, so
That's right.
you really have to stay on top of it. So, I hear that's one of the things that you're doing is helping those folks stay on top of it. And what I what I thought was interesting is you're not a technical guy, so you didn't come to Command to help them like modify how they're doing things on the back end. You came to give like a real world perspective. Like you can't talk to folks like this, or you have to, or better yet, you should talk to them like this and make this many
That's
contacts.
right.
And you're a support person for everybody else in the company. What else is it that that you're doing to lead command on this customer facing front?
Yeah, I think maybe not so much on the technical back end, but on the front end, technical front end, I like to call it. And hey, does this work? Does this software, doing this, is this something that's important to the ready mix business? Is this a feature within our software that's makes sense putting in, right? Or is it just something one or two companies will use and you'll never see it again, right? Those are type of things that they'll run past me and say, you as a former user, longtime user of our products, does this make sense? Is this something you'd want? Would it make your experience better? Would it make your operation run better if you had this module within our software? Right. So I give 'em my honest opinion on those things as well. So that's really important. So some of the features you're going to see in our our cloud journey, was run past me just to say, do you think this is good? Now, I don't always win the argument, and I'm not always right, but I will give you my opinion, right? So, which is great that a company is even doing that, right? I don't think our competitors have many industry folks actually putting their eyes on stuff and giving their honest, true, professional opinion on, do I think that's beneficial to the industry or not? So
Well, I
that's a
think
call.
that's a business lesson we all can
Mhm.
learn,
Yeah,
is that product fit matters so much, and at a certain point, you can't just yell and scream and until you're blue in the face that you have the thing that's gonna, change someone else's life or business. It has to be something that they want. It has to be a
that's right.
problem that you're solving. And if
That's right.
if you're not solving a problem, that's gonna be really difficult to get them to use your product, or in this case, probably an add-on or whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure, no doubt about it. Yeah, so that's one of my roles here. I have been recently really helping out with the sales team, training brand new sales reps, area sales managers, and just giving them a 5 or 6 course lesson on how to sell to an executive. What are the things that I want to hear or I didn't want to hear, or how not to waste too much time when you're in in these calls or meetings with executives or the champion, whoever you're selling to. um, and some of these, of course, we're not all going to have experience coming into an industry. Everybody starts somewhere. So even our sales reps, I'm training one right now, just didn't even know what a slump cone was, or didn't, I mean, know nothing about the industry, right? So in this particular case, I had to put my syllabus aside and go, I really got to go back to 101, right? So it was like taking somebody that's never seen a ready mix truck and said, here's ready mix concrete. This is what it does, right?
Wow.
So I had to go.
Did you have some friends in the area you were able to take them to some plants and stuff and
That's
get to it?
that's gonna be part of the whole training. Yeah. So I will do that and we'll do a walkthrough and I'll be able to say, hey, remember when I was telling you about that? That was that, and that was that, and that's that. So that's exciting. Um, and I really enjoy doing that. To be able to give back all those years that I've been doing this, and to be able to train a younger guy to say, welcome to the industry, and let me give you 30 years in 3 days, right? So it's
Oh my god.
it's
Yeah. Well,
it's a lot.
nothing's gonna beat actually being at the plant live
That's right.
and
Nothing.
actually seeing, like, here's why it's important
That's right.
that our stuff works,
That's
and
right.
it doesn't matter if it's batching systems or cloud software or if you're the Admix guy, whatever it is, like, if you're
Right.
training a new person, you gotta see, like, what impact are you having on these people's lives? I mean,
That's right.
there's nothing beats getting out there just making mud.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. So, we always we like to get industry folks in the door when you can, but that's far and few apart nowadays, right? It's just not I don't think it's a career, not now with the CIM program getting as big as it is. That's fantastic, but I don't think it's a career where I'm going to blame the industry, as a whole for this. And I've always complained about this. And we do a horrible job of getting into high schools and
Mm.
really saying, "Hey, there's a real career out there. It's not just a concrete truck running down the road. There are 50 different aspects to this business you could go down, right? There's different avenues, sales, technical, stone. We'll keep on going forever, right? And no, I don't think they know it. I really don't. I mean, we may do a couple of touch a truck things here and there, and but we don't. I don't think we do a really, really good, thorough job of getting the kids while they're young and saying, "Hey, there's a real career opportunity out here for you guys."
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and so we've had a lot of discussions with CIM folks about
Yeah,
what are they doing to go out and market the degree to the high schools. They're getting in the high schools. They're having a lot of those discussions, and like in Tennessee, where the flagship university is for the CIM
yeah,
program,
North
it's
Tennessee. Yeah,
they're doing a pretty decent job there. They end up you get a lot of kids who maybe grew up on farms that were used to hard work or being outside, and they're not scared by uh, going and working for a concrete company. But the concrete companies need HR folks. They need
that's right.
accountants. They
Yeah,
need you need everything
right.
to be.
Dispatchers,
You need
maintenance
kind
folks,
all kinds
mechanics.
of stuff.
Yeah,
But we were all told for a long time, man, that you you need to go to college and get a degree. Concrete's one of those spaces that might not always be true.
it's not
And if you're
true.
someone who's looking for a direct path from high school to work, and you've got a good work ethic, and you've got a good head on your shoulders, and you don't want to go 100, $200,000 in debt, and you want a good paying job with good companies, I mean, it's an industry to certainly be looking at.
No, no doubt about that. I think I mentioned this on another podcast, a career podcast. Just what we were talking, just what you're saying is a lot of the kids, we'll get interns in sometimes, and um, I think that's the best place to start. Minimum wage, just learn this, for the summer, come in for the summer, and let's do a rotation. Let's put you through quality control. Let's put you in the plant. Let's put you everywhere. And then at the end of your tour, come back and say, I really liked dispatch. I felt comfortable there, right? I don't think we do a good enough job with that, right? Grabbing,
So
yeah,
no, well, hey, hang on. So there's a company I just learned this weekend. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he actually started at Mashmeyer Concrete down in
great
Florida,
company. Yep,
and they did exactly that. They did like this rotational program where you come in, and for like 2 years, you take a couple months, in operations, a couple months in quality, a couple months in dispatch, and maybe they have you driving a truck for a little
yeah,
while even, because they wanted you to have every piece of this business under your belt before you start telling anybody, what to do. And in fact, you might find that you like one thing better than another, and you have strong suits in one spot or another, and that's where you can gravitate toward.
yeah. No, that's good. And Mash Meyer is one of those companies that's always ahead of the game. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But I think even our larger companies, we need to start thinking that way because we're always, as an industry, we're always looking for people. We're always complaining how it's hard to hire people, right? That's the conversation you'll get with any ready. You put a bunch of ready mix folks in a room, and the first thing we're going to talk about is I can't find any good people, right? Well, that's partly our fault, right? I don't think we're doing a good enough job bringing these folks in young and putting them through what like Mashmeyer does and giving them a taste of the business. I'm talking about non-college graduates, high school graduates, very smart high school graduates that just don't want to spend the money could have a wonderful career in this business. And make plenty of money. You just gotta, I always said, the kids that came into the door and smiled and enjoyed their internship, and the few that we got through the door and just said, "Hey, I'll do whatever it takes. Just whatever it is, just do it. Yeah, I'll do it." Right. And they smile when they do it, and they're happy to be here. Those are the folks that are going to go all the way up to the top one day, right? So
Well, I mean, nothing beats work ethic, and I don't care how many degrees you have, more degrees than a thermometer. But
it
if you don't have,
right.
yeah, it doesn't matter. You have to have the work ethic. The work ethic trumps everything, especially in a business like concrete, where you can sniff out folks that ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing so fast,
Oh, very very quickly. That's right. That's right.
very very quickly. I want to touch back on something else you said much earlier in this podcast. You mentioned that you are a Chicago Bears fan. So anybody who's watching this on YouTube right now, they can see all the wonderful paraphernalia in the background there of the Chicago Bears. But I think the most important question regarding the Bears is, how do you feel about the move to Hammond, Indiana? Big news out of the NFL. The Chicago
I
Bears will not be playing at Soldier
I I'm a businessman, so I understand the business, right? Um, if you're a business person and you understood what they were giving the Bears in return to go to Hammond, you'd say you're a fool not to take that.
No, I know. So I don't.
Right?
So I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
surface.
yeah.
I'm
So
surface
Hammond,
level on the
Indiana
Bears. I
basically
don't.
gave them everything you could possibly want. They're financing the stadium. They're going to give it to them for $1 after 30 years. They're going to be able to keep all the revenue. So imagine someone said, "Hey, Paul, you wanna start this huge podcast business? I will give you everything: the studio, the microphone. I'll give you all your advertisers. You just do your job, and you get to keep all the revenue. Don't worry about me. I want you to put your studio here, though. Right? Just put it right here."
Was that an offer? Ron, was that an offer? Are you
So
trying to buy the podcast already? Come on, man.
it's really hard not to. Now there's some 100 years of history with the Chicago Bears and Papa Bear Hallis and George Hallis and all. A lot of this is some smokescreen stuff going on. A lot of this is to keep the conversation going. It keeps the conversation going within Illinois. The lawmakers, they don't want to be the ones that said we let the Bears get away.
Wait, oh wait, hold on. This isn't like
It's not
finalized?
finished yet. No, no.
Oh, I
It
thought it
sounds
was
like
a
it's
done deal.
finished, but it's not. There was a letter that went out by the Bears that said, "Hey, our board of directors have decided to move forward." Now, be careful with the word "move forward," right? That doesn't mean we are done. No more talking. We're moving to Hammond. We're going to move forward with more exploration, basically. Okay, so it was a little nudge to the Illinois lawmakers to say, we're getting really close. So you guys got to come up with something here, okay? Because you will lose us if you don't get moving on this, right? So now it's
Well,
all clear on the talk.
there's no stadium there, so you have to build a stadium. So you're at least 3 to 5 years
At
out.
least. So there's no big
At least.
rush. It's
At least.
yeah. So I think they're gonna end up in Arlington Heights, Illinois, where they bought the racetrack, where they already own the property. They're still in Illinois. I really think lately, as of the last couple of days, there's a lot of talk now about leaving them in Chicago, in the city. There are a couple spots that are open that need some revitalization. It's a poor part of the city that could really use that oomph, and I think that might even end up happening. So who knows?
I hope the best for everybody involved. There's
Yeah,
Chicago can get a bad rap on the internet for condition of parts of the city and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But if you actually go, if nobody's been and you want to take a trip, like go down to where like that weird bean statue is, and
I
just
love the
look
bean.
and
Yeah,
just take a look around. You're like, holy crap, this
yeah,
is a world class city.
it
I
is.
can totally see why people live here.
Yeah,
It is absolutely gorgeous. The food is unreal.
unreal.
And
Yeah,
Chicago's right on the water. Like, people just forget it's right on the water. Now, you have the worst airport,
yeah,
O'Hare.
yeah. It's
I
one
mean,
of them. That's for
you
sure.
gotta go out of Midway, and it's not any fun either, but, O'Hare might be the worst airport I've ever traveled in and out of, so
So
got
yeah,
that.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Now I live in now I don't know if you know, but I live in Mississippi now, and I live in Tupelo, and spending my whole life in Chicago and up north. This is my first full year outside of the city proper, or let's say the north, Chicago, Detroit. Um, and I really enjoy it. What I don't enjoy the most is the food. There isn't that food culture here. It's all about chicken strips. Everybody in Mississippi loves chicken strips. I don't get it. I don't understand it. How many chicken strips can you eat in your life? I mean, so,
That's
I can't get
hilarious.
my favorite Italian food or my favorite this or that. There's just not here. Just not. So when my kids come to see me, they still live in Chicago and one lives in Iowa. I make them stock up with groceries that I can't get here and bring them on down to me.
That is so funny. Well, the biggest culture shock I felt you'd have, was probably the pizza. I mean,
Oh, for
Detroit
sure, for sure.
Detroit and Chicago, those gotta be, like, top 5 cities for pizza in this country.
No doubt. No
Now
doubt.
you're in Tupelo.
No pizza here. Like Domino's pizza is a gourmet pizza here. Okay. So there's no that.
I grew up in Alabama. That was gourmet to me when I was growing up too,
Oh,
and
so you know how it is. And yeah, and when the occasional new pizzeria pops up in town, the people just lose it and say, "Oh, you gotta try this. It's unbelievable." Right. And I'll say, "Oh, let me go just do it." right? So
That's
I'll
so
I'll
funny.
I'll try it and say, when you don't know any better, you just it's good, right? It's probably good to you. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're being honest, but it's really awful.
Oh, man. The first Chicago deep dish that I ever had, probably 2014 or 15, and went, like had to go, like, under the building into I don't remember I don't remember what the building was. We were downtown, and to go it was sublevel
Downstairs.
down. It was really downstairs, from the outside of the building. You had to
Yeah.
go down the concrete sidewalk
Pizzeria
steps.
Due, it's called. You go right down the stairs from the
Is
street
that it?
level, and
Actually, I think that
yeah,
was it.
it's red and white checkered cloth, the
Yeah,
tablecloth.
yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Oof.
was dude, I'm telling you that it changed my whole perspective on what a pizza pie could even be. You couldn't even finish a slice of it. It had to be 4 inches
Yeah,
flipping
it's
thick.
heavy. Yeah, it's heavy.
It was heavy. Yes, heavy's the right word. You
Yeah,
ate it and you felt like you had a brick in
yeah,
your stomach. Like, that was
that's right.
heavy. It
Now,
was
I don't know
so
if you I'm
good.
not sure if you know this or not, but people who live in Chicago do not eat that pizza. That is
Oh, no
not
way.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that
Where
that is
y'all go?
tourist pizza. That's
Well, you
what
got me. You got
Yeah,
me.
oh,
You got
everybody
me.
no, don't get me wrong, it's great pizza, but it's just too much to eat on a regular basis.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
most Chicagoans will tell you this. We like our round, square cut, cracker thin. It's called tavern style pizza. It's really thin, and it's just it's not that pick it up and the cheese is going off, but it's not that. So the majority of I would say 9 out of 10 Chicagoans will say we don't like that deep dish pizza. It's a touristy thing, right?
Wow, okay, fantastic. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry talking about it, I gotta tell you that. I gotta tell you that. So, you're in Mississippi now,
Yeah.
but, I mean, you spend most of your time, forward facing
Yeah.
with concrete plants and
I do.
helping those guys. I just thought it was really interesting. I was really glad we were having this conversation because it's super interesting to me that a company as big as Command turned around and said, "Hey, we hear you. We hear you, customer. There's a complaint here. We hear you." And just sort of like looked internal and said, "Yeah, we should fix this, and it's not gonna be just fixing your account. We're gonna fix the whole business, and we're gonna make sure this is a priority." And now that you're there, like, what's that like? Like, what's that culture like to be working in a place where they don't just say they're customer first, like, it's everything, and I don't know that you see that everywhere. So what's
Yeah,
that like?
it's different. A lot of companies talk that talk and never really follow through with it. It's just I think they believe they want to go that direction. I just don't think they have the proper leadership to make that change. It takes real change agents to come into a company as large as Command Alkon, where we got to reach around the world and to make these operational changes for the better takes a lot of work, right? It takes a lot of right people who are willing to do the dirty work because it's not
Mm,
easy, right? Anytime you talk about change within a company, that's the hardest part as an executive is to make any type of change. I don't care if it's this little or it's global, right? Nobody likes it. Everybody seems to believe we've been doing it this way forever. It's fine. Look how big we got. The way just the way we are, right? And they don't start to see the slide because they're not outside of it. They're still in the bubble, right? So they're not hearing the noise like a person like me from the outside, a customer is hearing. They're not hearing it. They're tone deaf to it sometimes. So I think it's natural. I think it happens within big organizations, but it takes a true leader to come in and really say, no, this is real. This is happening. And before I could do anything else with the company, we need to fix this, right? I believe I remember my boss Martin Willoughby, our CEO. He said he had when he first got into his role as CEO with our company, he did sort of a world tour. He wanted to meet everybody, meet all the customers, and get their feedback on what was going on. And he was hearing these things, right? So he had to know that there was something wrong somewhere, and some change had to be made. And to his credit, he wasn't playing around. He got it done, and we got it done. As a matter of fact, I was at a conference this over the weekend in down in Florida. It's called the Quad State Concrete Association. It's a combination of 4 states got together and had their summer convention down in Destin, Florida. Sat down at a table, and a gentleman who I did not know, he was a customer of ours, wasn't familiar with the company, introduced myself to him, and one of my sales reps was with me, and he just blurted out of nowhere, "You guys have done some real fantastic work with customer service. I no longer have to wait on hold for an hour. It's 5 seconds. It's here. It's now." He goes, "What did you guys do?" And I was just like a little kid, like, so nice to hear some feedback from somebody else and not have to get it out of them. Just blurt it. That was the first thing on his mind was, I need to tell these command folks how great of a job they're doing, which is a big deal, right? You don't hear that very often. So,
So so how did you change it? How did you change the wait time from an hour to
well,
just 5
we
minutes?
hired some good folks that knew how to do that. And a gentleman by the name of Brett Burtz, he's our chief customer um, officer, and he just had the know-how to make these changes, and beyond his that's his expertise, and he did it. And well, a lot of kudos to that team for sure.
Wait, what was his title?
He's the chief customer officer. So chief, like, he deals with all the customer
Yeah.
implementation and customer service.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Yeah. Normally when I hear titles like that, they sound fake and made up.
No,
So it's
this one's real. This one's 100% real. He's a rock star. He's done some fantastic work. I mean, not as the work, it's just how quickly he did it.
yeah. No, I
That's
mean I'm sure he's doing I'm sure he's a great
Yeah, no,
guy.
it's a legit
But
title.
you hear those titles and you're like,
Yeah,
what does that guy
yeah.
even do, man? Like
Yeah,
it's
chief customer officer is in charge of making sure that our customers are happy and they're getting what they need. And a scale as big as we are,
Mhm.
you got to have some know-how, because you got to do this around the whole world, right? It's not just localized or regionalized. It's big, and hundreds of employees have to buy into this new way of thinking, right? So
Yeah.
he's got a whole team under him that does fantastic work, and no, he did some great work.
Do you do you ever go around and try and get like the aggregate guys and the ready mix guys to like kind of agree, like it's people like in the same geographical area and be like agree like, hey, we should all be on this like platform, because if we're all able to like connect with one another, then you'll see how much inventory there is of rock. You'll see how much inventory the guy at the ready mix plant has, and like all those shipments and everything can all be synced up really good. I see a lot of these like cloud systems that are out there, and I'm like, man, if you can't see the what's actually at the quarry, then felt like a lot of the stuff might be disconnected. And so I was curious, like from you, are you only talking to concrete guys, or do you try
Oh,
to
no,
go
no,
out
no.
and
I talked to everybody,
connect everyone?
ag producers, asphalt, everybody. Yeah, that's the whole idea of our cloud. That's the beauty of our cloud platform. Everything will be able to connect and sync up together. Where a ready mix producer will be able to see, hey, I got this huge order coming in tomorrow. I need X amount of tons of stone. Does the quarry have it? Like, they could
Right,
turn,
right.
look, and they're just like that, and say, "Oh, we're good. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to order anymore. It's there, so I'm good to go." Those things never happened in the past. So that's the beauty of the cloud. All that information is shared in one spot, and it funnels down to all our platforms. So, and that's what we're trying to get across to companies now is, you have the visibility like you've never had before. It's amazing. Just as even with KPIs. Um, when I was running Ready Mix, and that was just a couple years ago, I was always running my business in the rearview mirror. I was always a month behind. It's hard to run a business when you're looking behind. Yeah, you can make some changes a month later, but it doesn't really change the fact that you lost your pants on a project because your customer couldn't get your trucks back on time, and you lost money. Now we're going to have the opportunity to see it right now today, exactly when it's happening on a job site. You'll see a bottleneck happening on a project that's going on right now live, and AI is going to tell you, hey, you got an issue over here. You need to address it rather quickly, because at this moment in time, you're below your margins. You're losing money on this project. So now I can pick up the phone and start taking action. which before I couldn't do that for weeks, right? Maybe a week or two until I got the info back, all the data mined. And I would call it data mining, which takes forever. Um, so as an operator now, as a ready mix or ag or any asphalt, you're going to have that opportunity to run your business by the minute. And that's exciting. I really wish I would have had that opportunity. I did not, because it's just really, AI has just become popular here. What, the last year, few months, actually, when you really think about it.
Well, I don't know about in the command world, but I think AI for all of us normies like kind of popped on the scene when GPT,
Yeah,
Chat
me too.
GPT,
Yeah,
that was 2022, and I was in business school getting my MBA when chat launched, and immediately you could see exactly which kids were using it and which ones weren't, and it was like so obvious. And unfortunately for the kids that were using it, like you're just like, guys, your answer is not right. Like at that time,
yeah,
it
yeah.
would be right like 80% of the time, and it would just get like or maybe even 95% of the time, but that
It's
one
got
thing that
better.
it got wrong was so wrong,
That's
and
right.
you're like, "Okay." And then it was funny to watch people trying to get an MBA by just copying and pasting whatever the ChatGPT said, but
Yeah,
those AIs are so much more
yeah.
powerful now, man.
And
They're
and you know where the return on your investment's going to come in when everybody eventually moves over to the cloud and AI embedded in the cloud is we all know in the past and I'll speak in ready mix terms. Trying to hire a new dispatcher was very difficult. Dispatching ready mix is a very, very difficult job. Don't anybody kid you. It's probably one of the hardest jobs in the business. And the guys that really know it and gals that know it really well are getting ready to retire. And it's all up here and they're taking it with them. Okay. So there's nothing you can do about it. So you have these younger folks coming in and we're trying to train them to be new dispatchers. The old way was just, it would take months to get them comfortable with putting in an order and scheduling a certain time the next day. It's really an art. It's really an art. And those artists are going away. But now with the cloud and command, we're going to have AI agents embedded in there that's going to give this new person a heads up and say, hey, Mrs. Dispatcher, you don't want to put that order there because tomorrow you're going to have a conflict out of yard 7 because you're sharing an order and you're going to hurt that job if you do this. Here's what I suggest you do instead. So instead of having that super intelligent person who's no longer with the company, you have to have somebody telling these young folks what to do, right? And giving them a heads up.
yeah,
So that's really going to be cool.
I'm 1,000% believer that the AI is not gonna be replacing very many
No, it's
jobs. It's
not going
gonna
to
get
replace anybody. Well,
well, I
some
mean, it
say,
might yeah, I mean, it might free some people up, maybe even jobs that it will take. Um, Eventually, they're gonna have robots that sort packages,
that's right.
and people won't have to sort packages. Well, people don't sort mail in a mailroom either. Like, not every job is sacred. Do we even ask those people, "Do you wanna sort boxes for a living?" They probably don't, and we can move them to we can move them to something else that's more fulfilling and maybe even higher paying. In the concrete world, it I don't see it as like, "Oh, we have 5 people, we're gonna have to, put it down we get to put it down to 1." You're gonna be like, "Oh, these 5 people can be 4 times more productive in either what they're doing, or even if there was an elimination role, find me a concrete plant that's not shorthanded,
That's
that they
right.
couldn't take that
That's right.
person and have them doing something else and adding more value to the company, maybe bringing more value to the person." And the whole thing is gonna be incredible. And so for command, so you guys are jumping in on the AI. It sounds like you're jumping in on the AI stuff too then.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think you have to. I think there isn't a company out there that's going to survive unless you take that route eventually. You're going to have to, and right and for the good for the better. It's going to be great. I think it's absolutely needed. Right. This is a perfect time in the industry for this to happen, where you could free up some folks because hiring is so difficult. Um, Obviously, drivers is the hardest thing to find.
Oh man,
Um,
drivers is so
eh,
one of my upcoming guests is Manny Tejano from Rocket Start, and the whole point of his business is to retain drivers, and it's the whole thing's awesome that he does, and I'm like, yep, Like what the industry needs this so bad.
Well, you know what the problem is, Paul? The biggest problem, and I was gonna write an article about this. By the way, if you guys haven't seen, I have an article on LinkedIn. It's a weekly newsletter called Industry Insights. If you're interested, just go on my LinkedIn page. You'll find it. You can subscribe to it. I like to give some good topics every couple of weeks, something new in the industry. And one of the topics I wanted to talk about are states that allow that marijuana is legal. Okay, I think there's going to be a time where we're going to have to do a better job of testing marijuana usage on the spot instead of, you know, how it can linger in your body for 30 days, whatever it is. And then you get caught and then you're fired, but you really weren't even high that day. But you know what I mean? Just like alcohol, we have on the spot alcohol testing. I think the Department of Transportation federally needs to do a better job in finding a way to test these young guys for, you know, immediate usage, not 10 days ago or a week ago. Because I think we're losing a lot of drivers due to that fact. They may
Right.
not be coming to work drunk on high, but they were,
Yeah.
right? So
Right. So you're saying that they're already employed. So
right.
but it could be also be a barrier that it's
Or
like
not employed, or not employed. We can't,
right.
I mean, they want to drive, they
Right.
can't get in the door because they can't pass the drug test, and they say, "Hey, I'm not high. I do it recreationally on the weekends or whatever." Right? Now, I'm not advocating for marijuana whatsoever. I wish no one would do it, but that's just, it's reality. A lot of states it's legal, so your pool has now shrunk from this to this, right? Because it is
Yeah,
what it is.
that's super interesting.
Mhm.
So I don't know much about that whole anything. I'm a teetotaler. I
Yeah,
don't
you have
do
to, you know, you have to
I have
pass.
no vices.
Yeah, no,
But
yeah.
but on the on the testing side, um, I always submitted to drug tests when I was getting hired places.
We're
Um,
used to it, is what it
but
was.
but if
Yeah,
but if you test your drivers, it goes back to like 30 days, so it doesn't discriminate on whether you're just having fun on a weekend
that's right.
versus like
That's right.
were you impaired while driving a ready
That's
mix
right.
truck.
And it's a federal regulation. It's not even a company policy. It's a federal regulation. If you own it, if you have a CDL commercial driver's license, it's a federally controlled driver's license, and it's their rules. And I do understand they are trying to come up with some better testing mechanisms where they could test where it's like within 24 hours and not 30 days. I heard it's getting better. I think when that happens, when you can take a random marijuana test for, you know, on the spot high, if you're on it, uh, I think the hiring process will get a lot better. But in the states like I know Michigan, it's legal. Illinois, it's legal. A lot of states it's not legal, but you could have a medical marijuana card, which is not hard to get. Let's just face it. You go to the doctor, tell them your back hurts, and here's your card. So a lot of the young kids will go out and get them. They want them. It's just part of life now. And so I think that's a barrier that's got to be looked into because we're having a hard time finding people.
No, it's super interesting. I don't know any concrete plant that's not struggling. Ooh, 2 double negatives in a sentence too.
But no, we get it. That makes not
They're all
struggling
struggling
is
to get
right.
drivers. Yeah.
There's not one in the country that says I could find drivers. I don't care how much you pay an hour.
Right,
It's not
right.
about the pay. It's if I can get in my soapbox a little bit, and I think here's another thing we don't do very well. I don't think we incentivize our drivers enough and make things a little more palatable to want to be a driver because if you work up north, now imagine this. I'd hire drivers back in the day, and I'd be interviewing them. And they say to me, sounds like a great job. How much do I make? Oh, it's like $30 an hour. That's amazing, right? I'm saying, yeah, $30 an hour. You get free health insurance and for you and your family, you don't have to pay a dime for it. Awesome. Another question for you. What time do I start in the morning? You know what I tell them? I really don't know that. How about what time do I work till? Can't tell you that either. Right? Do I work on Saturdays? I don't know that either. Will I work all year round? Probably not. Right. So that $30 an hour just went down to like $9 an hour when you take it and divide it by 12 months. Okay. it's not so appealing anymore. Okay, so there's no assurity. They can't go home to their kid's baseball game because they may have to work till 7 o'clock at night. You get caught on a job site somewhere. It's hard. It's hard. Who wants to work under those conditions? I mean, when you could go drive a box truck for Amazon and make the same amount of money, but have a consistent income coming in every week. That's a problem we got to get better at. So either
Yeah,
we do a
that
40 work week. We incentivize that way, where we do a rotating schedule, like 4 days on, 3 days off, something like that. But we got to start getting creative because we're having a hard time finding drivers. We got to do something different.
well, I mean, that's not gonna stop night pours from happening. So
No,
it's
there's
still
night, yeah, but night pours are not the norm. They're not every day. Those are unusual. Those are, they're just not the norm. So, and a lot of guys will volunteer for that anyways. So it's not like you got to go get it. Somebody wants to do the night pour usually. I'm just saying your regular work week. It's too all over the board. You don't know if, hey, do I work when it rains? No. How about when it's cold? No. It's a lot of no's in there, not a lot of yeses, right? So the uncertainty in your work schedule is important to a young family who wants to build a career, right? Now, if you work down south, the southern half of the country, it's a little different because the weather's better and you work more, right? A lot of times the southern state companies don't work on Saturdays because they could get enough done during the week, and they work all year, right? 12 months. That contractors are not in such a hurry. Up north, they have to hurry up, get the job done, because all of a sudden the freeze is coming and I have to get this done. So I'm going to work Saturday, Sunday, nighttime, to get it done. So it's harder on the drivers, right? So
Yeah, that's true. Well, and even down south, it depends on like what city you're in. Like
it
if
could.
you're in
Yeah,
Nashville or Charlotte right now, where you can't build enough houses,
that's right.
they're working Saturdays there. It's all
Yeah.
residential.
Well, sure. And a lot of guys like working. So it's overtime. It's more money, right? And that's usually volunteer work on Saturdays. They ask guys first. And then if nobody wants to volunteer, then they go from the bottom up and recruit you.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation about, um, hearing from you, a guy who came in from the outside, came from the came from the prison system. That's incredible, and it made a life and a career for you and your family in all aspects of ready mix. And now you're out there, uh, you know, paying attention to those guys and helping them with what they need, and it helps Command too. I just think it's great conversation for the audience to hear from a customer centric perspective that there are folks like you that are out there trying to make things better in all aspects. And there are nuggets from this conversation that we could all take in our own businesses and
Yeah.
make sure that we're lending that same perspective to what we're doing. So, man, I really appreciate you coming on here and
No,
talking.
I appreciate you having me. It's a lot of fun. I really do. I love this business, and anything I could do to further its cause, I'm going to be there for it as long as I could. I probably have another 10 years before I retire, but I'm not really thinking about that quite yet, but it crosses my mind here and there.
Well, let's hope the Bears are still in Chicago by the time.
They will be. They'll be somewhere in Illinois, I predict.
I didn't get from you. Are you a baseball guy? Are you a Cubs
I'm a
or
Cubs
White Sox?
fan. Oh, yeah. I'm a
Cubs
Cubs
fan.
fan.
Yeah, big Cubbies. All right. Well, Bartman is
We
one of like
don't
the
want to revisit
seminal,
the apartment days.
it's like one of the seminal like core memories in my brain as a child growing up. So
Yeah,
that's-
mine too. Trust me. It's burnt into my memory.
yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for everybody tuning in. This is Ron Carlson from Command Alkon. Appreciate you guys. Take
Thanks, man.
care.
Appreciate it.